We watched helplessly as the lone seraphim plummeted, jump pack on full blast. Just as her fate seemed to be sealed, another figure flew over with incredible speed and plucked the falling sister from the sky. Not believing my own eyes, I voxed, Did any of you see that? A chorus of responses from other seraphims in the air confirmed my sighting. As if the event wasn't unbelievable enough, mere moments later a huge pair of angelic wings appeared on the Savior. These were wings glowing with a divine radiance that reminded me of him on Holy Terror. Testament excerpt from Miracles of the Holy Daughter. The seraphim who I had spent so much effort to save just went clinically dead. I mentally dismissed the unreal birds while simultaneously turning off, wings of Sanguinius. With their anchor to this universe cut off, my astral wings and the birds dissolved like fading fog. Like my wings, the life I once held in my hands had also vanished. What now? The cold calculus I had some time ago had come back to haunt me. This might not be the wisest course of action. I gently laid the sister down on the ground before removing her helmet. It revealed an unnaturally pale young lady with dried blood caking around her nostrils and mouth. I used Auspex to check on her. My scanning revealed the horrible damages she had suffered. Chief amongst her injuries was a skull fracture, a collapsed lung, multiple broken ribs and most importantly, a stopped heart. Just then a new squad of seraphim arrived, and I heard a name called out over the vox. Leth. Squad mates? These new arrivals were emitting solemn emotions, like they somehow knew their mate just died. Then I tasted how deep were their emotions and realized for real, they knew. How? Connecting the dots, I connected myself to the Noospheric Tactical Network and virtual name tags popped up one after another in my augmented view. The recently deceased sister was tagged with a grayed-out name, Lethine Keel. The newcomers landed quickly and a sister named Phyrexia Cal rushed over. She halted upon recognizing me, then turned to look at Lethine who was dead on the ground before falling to her knees. Sad as it wasn't time to give up yet. I turned to the still kneeling Seraphim Superior. Zafia, how far away are the help you mentioned? A moment please. Zafia stood up and voxed the responders. She had the answer a short while later. We ended up quite a distance from the landing zone. They will be here in a few minutes. Poor Lethine could not afford a few minutes if she was to have her last and only chance at resuscitation. With the advanced medical technologies of the 41st millennium and the high standard of medical care available to every sister of the Adepta Sororitas, her injuries should be treatable. The real question was whether her life force could hold on long enough for the professional help to arrive. We watched in silent distraught as the young and promising lady slowly inched towards true death. With her demise, my reputation would be dragged down the... No, forget that. There must be something I can do now to help. Not about to give up, I reviewed Lethine's condition again and found no single obvious injury for her fatality. Despite this she died. Was it because she endured too much shock? Sister Phyrexia, who was kneeling, looked up at me. Though her face was obscured by a helmet, anguish was plainly etched into her posture. My passive telepathy picked up a desperate, teary-eyed silent plea. Please, Holy Daughter, it is not her time yet, it couldn't be her time. Throne darn it, who can I turn to for help? I remembered Saint Celestine, the most famous living saint of this universe. In the grimdark tabletop game I once played, she was a really powerful figure who possessed unbelievable divine powers. If the stories were to be believed, Saint Celestine could heal her chosen companions and even revive them. Being a living saint in waiting, I wondered if the people around me just expected such miraculous feats from me. Unfortunately, yours truly was not exactly a real saint sanctioned by the Emperor. Desperate, I fired up thought acceleration and started digging out all the relevant first aid knowledge from the library deep inside my head. A few breaths later, combining my freshly gathered information and limited medical know-how, I arrived at some unlikely solutions. What's her name? I asked, just to be sure. Lethine, Sister Lethine Keel, replied a sister who was tagged with the name Axla. The tactical data was on point. I nodded before pulling my best poker face, and declared with a straight face to cover up deep concerns, Emperor willing, I will save Sister Lethine. Pray for her. It was time to attempt another miracle. I bent down beside Lethine and went to work. First order of business was to attempt cardiopulmonary resuscitation. While that sounded straightforward enough, with a power armor plate and layers of fibro muscle getting in the way, it proved extra troublesome before even adding on the complication of broken ribs. Having no time to waste, I resorted to cheating with a skill which until now was used only once to open a locked library door. First I tilted Lethine's chin upward by applying upward pressure just below the jaw to open her mouth. A short burst of Auspex was used to ensure there was no blockage in her airway. That done, I placed my hand on her chest plate and telekinetically applied controlled downward pressure directly to her sternum where the rib cage ends. Starting gently, my telekinetic force bypassed her armor to initiate the compressions. It was difficult and awkward at first, but I quickly got the hang of it and was soon pushing with a consistent rhythm of about 100 compressions per minute. I was very careful with my application of force to avoid further exacerbating her grievous wounds. According to the CPR manual, the next step was to administer rescue breaths. I went straight to manipulating Lethine's diaphragm to simulate the natural expansion and contraction, imitating the breathing action without resorting to physical mouth-to-mouth contact. I also telekinetically massaged key arteries around her neck and legs to stimulate blood flow toward critical organs, all the while continuing the chest compressions. To the observing battle sisters, I was merely letting Lethine's head rest on my thigh while having one hand lightly placed across her chest plate. Little did they know multiple processes were simultaneously underway to resuscitate their fallen comrade. After a short while, just as I was wondering if I should try discharging lightning to simulate a defibrillator, Lethine's heart started to beat again. While still very weak, her life signs had definitely returned as her once grayed-out name lit back on the tactical network. The tactical system was reading Lethine as being alive again. This development prompted all the previously silent battle sisters around me to erupt with cheers and praises to the Emperor. Welcome back. As I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, an alarming feeling informed me that something was amiss with Lethine. There was this distinct total lackness of mental activities. It felt like there was no soul inside her body. Wait, are you going brain dead on me? I probed Lethine's mind lightly, and to my horror found nothing but what was akin to a static television screen inside. This was not how a normal person's mind should be. For the love of... Is it because of the skull fracture? I immediately went psychically active and embraced Lethine. As my consciousness stepped into hers, I found a blank mess and sensed her rapidly fracturing ego all around me. At this rate she might become a vegetable. With options drying out fast, I decided to gamble on a last-ditch attempt. Activating my halo, I rapidly constructed a mental space inside her head while sending a message into the deepest recesses of a vanishing mind. Lethine, go to the light. Lethine Keel found herself fully suited in power armor and walking on a lush green grassy field. A warm, lazy breeze caressed her face as she wondered how she got here in the first place. The sky was an unbelievable shade of blue. She had never seen a sky this blue nor grasses this green. Despite the strangeness, everything here felt deeply nostalgic, like stepping into a forgotten home from a distant memory that faintly tugged at the very edges of consciousness. Lethine found herself tearing up at the scene from the unfamiliar yet intense emotion. Even during the years when she endured countless hardships to become a sororitas, Lethine never once felt this emotional. After a while, she reached a small slope. At its crest stood a large white umbrella, shading a white tea table with two matching lawn chairs. Seated in one of the chairs was a girl dressed in a white robe. Upon seeing her approach, the girl stood up, waving and beckoning. Lethine was certain she had seen the girl before, but couldn't for her life recall any details. A stark contrast to the vivid scenery, her memory was hazy. This was either a dream or some sort of sorcery. Sorcery. The mere recollection of that word alone jolted Leithine. She immediately stopped to check around for signs of witchcraft or heresy but found none. Everything was just peaceful. Leithine felt herself mellowing down and continued her journey. Eventually she reached the table and the white-robed girl greeted her warmly. "Leithine, you made it. Please, take a seat." This girl knew her name. Leithine took a closer look at her mysterious host. She possessed shoulder-length platinum hair that cascaded like flowing silver that glinted with soft radiance. Her angelic face held a timeless grace that could only be described as sculpted with ethereal delicacy, and she possessed crystal-clear grey eyes that whispered of a tranquil sky. Completing her presence was a benevolent aura that could soothe even the harshest of hearts. She evoked a sense of serenity that Leithine could not fathom as anything less than celestial. "Who are you? How do you know my name, and where is this?" Leithine asked while sitting down. She was careful and tested the chair before letting herself settle. The elegant chair was sturdy enough even with the full weight of her power armor bearing down on it. This was something the Battle Sister was conscious about after ruining a few flimsy chairs while still getting accustomed to her armor. "I am SYRINE. Relax and have some refreshment first. I will tell you everything you need to know." SYRINE. Leithine was sure she had heard the name before, but her head ached the moment she tried to recall further. The scent of freshly brewed tea brought her focus back to the table as SYRINE started pouring steaming liquid into delicate teacups. "Try the tea with these Danish butter cookies. Tell me if you like them," SYRINE said while pushing a cup of tea and a plate of delicacies towards Leithine. On top of the plate was a collection of mouth-watering pastries that Leithine had never seen before. Despite being a full-fledged member of the Adepta Sororitas, Leithine was still a youngster at her core and could not help but pick up a cookie before cautiously taking a bite. The cookie was crunchy, tasted nice and was not overly sweet. A moment of chewing later, she took another bite, then disappeared the whole cookie in her mouth. She reached for another cookie after that, and another after that, until the plate was empty. Leithine then reached for the cup of tea, sipped it a little before gulping it down. The Battle Sister let out a satisfying sigh before putting the cup down, then SYRINE quietly filled the cup again. Leithine was about to take another sip on the nice tea when she remembered SYRINE's promise. Deciding to get to the bottom of her situation, she put down her cup and started asking questions. "So where is this and what is going on? Tell me." "Well," SYRINE replied apologetically, "you were involved in a training accident and literally died." Upon hearing those words, Leithine felt deep chills running down her spine. She had the distinct feeling of being on the verge of remembering, but her mind immediately went hazy again. "What did you do to me?" Leithine asked while pressing down a creeping sense of nausea. "This place and everything here is a vision. I brought you here to prevent your mind from collapsing." "Vision?" Leithine was about to refute that ridiculous claim before remembering the oddity of her situation. Restraining her impulse to argue, she decided to ask SYRINE more questions. "You are telling me this is not a real place?" "Yes. And you are communicating with me via some mystic ways as mentioned in the Holy Scriptures, like how living saints received guiding visions from the Emperor?" "Close enough. Can you show me any proof for that? Would you like to look at your current state in the real world?" Not expecting such a direct reply, Leithine nodded grimly. "Brace yourself." SYRINE waved. The next moment Leithine saw it, a girl. No, she recognized that it was herself, her eyes closed, her skin pale as snow, and she was being cradled by a person unseen. When Leithine looked closer, she could see bruises and wounds all over her own face. A mind trick? No, every fiber of her being screamed that she was seeing the real thing, and fragments of what had happened began piecing themselves back together in her aching head. Just before Leithine felt like she was going insane, SYRINE waved again, and the scene disappeared. Leithine choked and started hyperventilating. "Focus and stay calm. Help is on the way." As an exceptional individual qualified for the Seraphim training program, Lethine's iron discipline developed by years of harsh training kicked in, and she soon stabilized her own breathing. After reciting some prayers to further improve her condition, Lethine's mind became coherent again and she started asking more questions. Should I be thanking you? Just who are you? I should be the one thanking you. SYRINE replied with a self-deprecating smile. Thanks to you, I have acquired something new. As for your second question, that's not important now, save your strength and get through this. Lethine was about to ask further when it dawned on her that she was here only because of this mysterious girl. She glanced at SYRINE again and stated matter-of-factly, You saved me. Not yet, you need to stay here and get through this. For how long? Time flows differently here, but it shouldn't take long. Conserve your energy for now, don't think too much. Lethine took the advice and sat back while trying to relax. She looked around and turned her attention to the azure-colored heaven. Why is the sky in this shade of blue? This is the sky from my homeworld. Really? Where is that? There was a slight pause before SYRINE replied. Holy Terror, about 40,000 years ago when the great oceans were still around. Lethine's eyes went wide at the answer. After a while she dropped another question. Why specifically 40,000 years? SYRINE shrugged. It was an era when it still had a blue sky. Lethine looked around again and found herself appreciating the strangely nostalgic landscape that was supposedly from the cradle of humanity. Things got quiet after that under the umbrella, the only sound being the soft whisper of a light breeze. A while later, Lethine felt the strange sense of crippling nausea returned. A disturbing feeling informed her that if she lost consciousness now, she might never wake up again. Am I going to be all right? Lethine asked, panting. I sure hope so. A storm like no other is approaching and we can use all the help. SYRINE replied with a look of concern. As if stirred by her words, the gentle wind gained strength, sending her platinum hair streaming like silken banners against the vivid blue backdrop of the sky. So beautiful. Lethine found the scene so breathtaking that a part of her wished she could stay in this moment forever. Her consciousness blurred and... Lethine? Reacting to her name, the sister snapped out of her daze, but it was clear she was losing focus. Lethine. Tell me, would you sacrifice your humanity to continue serving the Emperor? Noticing the weight of the question, Lethine looked up and noticed SYRINE's eyes had changed to a radiant gold. Sorcery? The alarming notion briefly crossed her mind again, but she was slipping fast. Realizing she might not get through this, Lethine answered without hesitation. Anything for him. Upon hearing that, SYRINE stood up and walked over. As she approached, a golden halo appeared around her head, filling the space with divine radiance. Lethine gasped at the holy light. A part of her mind was on the verge of recalling something important again. Wait, just who are you again? SYRINE did not answer, instead she reached out to her. Hold my hands. Lethine hesitated for a second before complying. As they held hands, the sister felt a sense of warmth passing over. Stay strong, help is here. SYRINE encouraged. As the warmth enveloped Lethine, her struggle to retain consciousness intensified. Knowing this was a matter of life or death, she gritted her teeth to remain vigilant. Her struggle slowly evolved into a drawn-out battle against the abstract, like fighting a shadow with bare hands. The pervasive weight of fatigue pressed against her soul like a relentless tide. Her thoughts wavered, slipping into incoherent fragments. Snatches of memories, images of the Emperor, and the half-heard echoes of past prayers mingled with the bark of bolters. Each time her focus faltered, the darkness pressed closer, whispering sweet promises of eternal rest. Keeping herself conscious became a monumental effort. She couldn't tell if minutes or hours passed in the haze of near surrender. While Lethine wasn't sure how long she endured this intangible battle, two things were certain: a comforting warmth always supported her, and losing was not an option. The next thing Lethine knew, she was on the ground, eyes opened and looking up. The sky above was the familiar dirty purple and there were some commotions around her. The sound of a speeder landing nearby could be heard. "She's awake!" a joyous voice shouted. As memories of the accident started rushing back to her, Leafine tried to look around but discovered she couldn't move her head. Then her best friend Ferxia and squad leader Axla came into view, both having their helmet visors lifted to reveal their concerned faces. Ferxia looked unusually out of character with her teary eyes. A flurry of hurried footsteps approached and a sister Hospitaller came into Leafine's view. She took a quick look at her sorry state before bowing reverently towards a direction above her head. "Holy Daughter." "At ease, sister," a familiar voice responded. "Sister Leafine here just regained consciousness. She suffers a skull fracture, a collapsed lung, multiple broken ribs, and bone fractures." Leafine instantly recognized that voice. It was from the same girl who had served her tea in that strange vision. Wait, that was the Holy Daughter? She was the person who saved me? Leafine had so many questions, she tried but failed to raise her hand. Then SYRINE's voice boomed near her head. "Don't move, Leafine. Save your strength." Startled, Leafine finally realized all this time she was being cradled by SYRINE. Holy Daughter. The blue sky, the green field, the cookies, were those all hallucinations? Leafine so desperately wanted to ask but found no strength to speak. SYRINE seemed able to read her mind and whispered. "Hush. All you need to do now is to get through this. For the Emperor and the Order. That and one day you might get to taste Danish butter cookies." Danish butter cookies. The idea of eating that delicacy sometime again in the future was very appealing. Leafine felt an urge to laugh at her own absurdity but was swiftly reminded of her injuries, nearly choking as sharp pain surged through her from the sudden movement. The battle sister sighed, settled down before looking up at the heavens and found herself already longing for that blue sky she saw in that vision. I watched with apprehension as the first aid speeder sped off with the miracle survivor into the distance. While everyone seemed high-spirited, I did not share their enthusiasm. I cheated again. In my desperate effort to keep Leafine's mind intact, I had circulated a portion of my psychic energy throughout her body. Amazingly, she regained consciousness, but whether such an unsanctioned process would bring about any ill side effects would remain to be seen. Leafine should be able to recover from this. Zafia, who was standing beside me, dropped the comment out of the blue. Did she notice my concern? "Your reason being?" I asked. Zafia bowed her head. "I am sorry. I am no Sister Hospitaller and have no solid reasonings to back my statement. It was just." Her spirited look gave me the distinct feeling that she will pull through this. "I sure hope so. Thank you for bringing my helmet." As I reached out and took it from Zafia, my microbead buzzed. "Hello? SYRINE? Are you done with your jump?" It was Thaberus. "Yes, anything?" "The tech priest Dominus summoned us some time ago. We are coming to pick you up." Up in the sky a familiar gunship appeared and rapidly approached. The Flame Raven was not alone. A pair of Mechanicus Archaeopter Stratoraptors were acting as its escorts. It was finally time to see Cryptora again. Thaberus disembarked from the Flame Raven with a small crowd in tow: Neandra, Psyche Yihai, Wellmanor with Solace, Margus Balpragus, a squad of stormtroopers with some non-combat specialists and Sister Hospitaller Verita who I had not seen for a while now. I soon learned Canonus Diadina had already set off to the vault with a contingent of battle sisters and would be meeting us there. So, not one but two new miracles today? Thaberus dropped the comment upon learning what had transpired. Though his tone was neutral, an unmistakable not again sentiment was seeping through. Unlike him, Wellmanor and Verita could barely hold their awe. Both kept asking Zafia questions while pestering the Seraphim Superior to show them her helmet's picked recordings. As for me, having a glimpse of what was supposedly sanguineous might be the only real miracle that had happened. However, That brief event was so difficult to explain without sounding unhinged that I decided to keep it to myself. The wings and revival though were just psychic powers and medical improvisation from my point of view. They were hardly miracles, I answered absent-mindedly and immediately noted everyone's flabbergasted reaction, almost face-palming myself for that casual statement. If the church caught wind of it, there was no way in hell they would not be trumpeting these as more of the Emperor's miracles. What usually followed will be a period of intense reporting, resulting in the creation of more die-hard pilgrims. I could see them now, their ranks ever swelling at the gate from the view of my room. Desperate to minimize the inevitable furore, I decided to voice up. I would like to avoid another commotion, please help keep things low profile for me. Low profile. Pardon the expression, but somehow that kind of sounded like a battle titan trying to be subtle on a battlefield. Thebris answered without skipping a beat. It never occurred to me inquisitors might make great stand-up comedians, despite clearly appearing bemused under his stern facade. Thebris' serious expression remained flawlessly intact. His statement however tensed up both Sophia and Verita, whereas Wellmanor immediately voiced her disagreement. That remark was uncalled for, Inquisitor, the scholar protested before turning to me and voiced her question. Lady SYRINE, spreading news of the God Emperor's miracles should be a blessing to all the faithful, may we know why you would wish otherwise? I managed a more reasonable response. It is just. I don't want my abilities to be public knowledge. Can we at least keep my wings under wraps for now? The Inquisitor and sisters nodded on that and they quickly sorted out on how to proceed. We rounded up all the seraphims present and with the help of Balpraju's backed up all picked recordings of me with my wings captured on their helmets before deleting them. Thebris then went through with his standard non-disclosure briefing with the battle sisters. While that was happening, Balpraju switched out my damaged jump pack with a standard Sororitas power backpack that he had carried over. I am sorry for trashing the jump pack in less than 2 days, I told the tech priest. Think nothing of it, my lady, Balprajus replied. My data archives hold ample records confirming that the Sororitas always gladly pay such a price to preserve one of their own. I must admit, the record log of your jump pack is intriguing. Your ingenuity in executing the rescue is most impressive. The Omnissiah favors such resourcefulness. Your praise for ingenuity surprises me, I said, knowing full well in the lore that some tech priests were known to treat creativity like a sin. Balprajus produced a mechanical beep that almost sounded like a chuckle before responding. There are times I have contemplated assignment on a major forge world, to be able to constantly bear witness to the grand works of the Omnissiah fully operational in person. Oh, and what is stopping you? The exchange of endless regulations in research flexibility on such places would be a significant limitation for my work. Some mysteries are best pursued beyond such rigid confines. See where I ended up? Having the honor to meet and serve you is the greatest blessing the Omnissiah has bestowed to me. Well, I'll be darned, for a tech priest fella can really sweet talk. With a final twist of his primary servo arm, Balprajus smoothly completed the switch of my backpack. Better make haste, Dominus Cycle mentioned we should not delay. So we parted with Zephyr and her seraphims and our journey towards the vault started. It was considered a short distance for the gunship. On board Flame Raven, I was seated in the comfortable cabin with Wellmanor beside me. She was cradling my helmet while Solace hovered nearby. This was the first quiet moment since the hectic morning, and I went into deep contemplation about the very nature of this world. Psychic powers, chaos gods, demons, living saints, miracles. Unlike my old world, all these exist here. Am I really in the far future, or is this a different universe where the fundamental laws are different? Thinking back on my initial reaction of arriving here, I spent a long while believing everything was but a vivid lucid dream before eventually accepting my new reality. That fleeting glimpse of Sanguinius had jolted my questioning about everything again. I sifted through my mind, trying to gain more insight by examining the uncanny stories woven throughout the known lore. Assuming that everything I knew about the grimdark universe back home holds true here, This place certainly hides a lot more than meets the eye. I recalled certain details in the Gaunt's Ghosts stories where there was a reincarnated living saint who was an ordinary human girl by all accounts, yet with nothing but a sword she could cleave through a super heavy tank. Then one time the legendary Commissar Gaunt got lost in secluded woods. He eventually received help from a mysterious battle sister, only to find out later she was supposedly a prominent figure of the past from hundreds of years ago. All that and many other examples seemed to be pointing at something deeper at play. It made me wonder if Big E was still pulling strings from his golden throne. Am I also just another pawn in the God Emperor's grand plan? As I pondered that existential conundrum, Thabrus appeared from the cockpit's direction with a large data slate in hand. He eventually stopped and simply stood across from me. You look like you have seen a ghost. The Inquisitor's remark pulled me back to reality. I stared at him, wondering not for the first time if he could read minds despite not being a psyker himself. Not that you should fear anything supernatural, Thabrus said and showed me his data slate. It was running a recording collected from one of the Seraphim's helmets. On the screen was an angel in silver power armor with her vast wings of divine light stretched wide. She was carrying a wounded battle sister while being surrounded by a swirling flock of ethereal birds. The scene appeared almost like it had been lifted straight from the stained glass panels of an ecclesiastical church, looking otherworldly in every sense of the word. At first, my mind struggled to accept the truth, yet it was undeniable that I was watching a video of myself. No wonder Zephyr acknowledged me being a legit living saint. Seeing that I did not respond, Thabrus spoke again. I just received an update. Cardinal Pordenith IV's starship just entered the system not long ago. His Eminence should be back in another few days. The Baron Pope is finally back. Is that why Malin is not around? I asked, and instantly noticed my mistake. Wellmana, whose eyes were glued to the divine display on the data slate, turned her head to me and answered. My lady, Preacher Malin did mention about having a meeting with the church higher-ups this morning, but she wasn't supposed to be joining us in the first place. Ah, that was silly of me, I quickly corrected myself. They are not even in the loop. Are you not feeling well? Thabrus asked. A tiny hint of concern actually crept into his otherwise movie-perfect stoic voice. I am fine. I was just contemplating the implications of my newfound powers, I told both of them with a brave front. In truth, I would be lying if I said this didn't concern me. The sanguineous experience had shaken me and my mind was off balance. Thabrus said nothing for a short while before switching topics. I have been staying in contact with Canonis Diadina. She is already in position. Sister, I trust you have your rebreather ready? Yes, thank you, Wellmana replied while taking out a sleek rebreather. It was the type that covers half the user's face, usually depicted on the miniature of a sororitas that wielded a heavy flamer. I was reminded that the place we were heading to might be hazardous, not that it would affect me. A transhuman clad in hermetically sealed power armor is impervious to all but the most extreme environmental conditions. Good. We will touch down soon. Is there anything you would like to add? Thabrus asked, looking straight at me. Nothing, thank you. Very well. He nodded and returned to the cockpit. Having some time to spare, I decided to just close my eyes and unwind while digging into my mind to review what was known about the vault. From the information gathered from the library, 10,000 years ago when the Imperium discovered Nusquam, it was a lifeless world despite having almost identical basic parameters to Earth. A decision was made from the very top to terraform the planet's atmosphere, and a massive automated machine was built to facilitate the process. The project was handled by the Mechanicum, the previous iteration of Adeptus Mechanicus. The end product was dubbed the Cradle Bastion, a colossal self-sustaining fully automatic marvel that would toil endlessly to alter the very nature of the world itself. Constructed deep within a mountain, it housed titanic atmospheric processors powered by advanced generatoriums to facilitate its long-term operations. The Bastion took in the world's acrid air, subjecting it to countless catalytic reactions before exhaling it anew, reshaped to nurture Earth-compatible life. A few thousand years later, the planet's transformation was a success and the colonization of the planet began. Lush forests now covered the land and human cities thrived in what was once an empty husk. It was deep inside this station where the secret vault and psychic beacon was located. Local legends tell of the time when the founder of the Order of Shining Beacon first arrived on Nusquam. The Cradle Bastion had long ceased its operation and was suffering from constant looting and vandalism by nefarious forces. Guided by holy visions, she rallied the people to eventually put a stop to those activities. Upon founding the local sororitas order, she declared the Cradle Bastion to be under their protection, forbidding its access to casual outsiders. According to Wellmanor, the founder has witnessed visions that convinced her the Emperor himself might have at one point in time stepped into the terraforming station, potentially making it sacred ground. Despite this groundbreaking information, she recognized that such a bold claim without proof would be met with extreme skepticism from the Church, so instead she had kept it to her most trusted associates, believing it was part of her calling to protect the place. Thus the Order has been guarding whatever was left of the relic bastion since their foundation. Their fortress monastery was even built on the main mountain road to the station. As I reviewed all this information in my mind, a feeling informed me we were getting very close to our destination. Silently I went psychically active. Despite still having my eyes closed, a titanic silver beam materialized into my view. Its presence cut through physical barriers and almost obscured another bright soul seated at the cockpit. Primaris Psyche Yi Hai immediately noted the activation of my power and sent me a telepathic nod, which I replied in kind. Out there the silver beam speared the heavens, a flawless column of radiance invisible to the mundane masses. From the point of view of my extraordinary senses, it looked to be a single unbroken pillar. As the distance between us rapidly shortened, its perfection slowly fractured into impossible complexities of lights and hues. The very air shimmered with an energy that reminded me of the God Emperor, and it felt as if reality itself was bending to accommodate something that should not exist. Within the beam, layers upon layers of light coiled and twisted with trapped silver and golden lightning. Particles of light rushing upward in an endless tide, each shimmered with impossible colors before dissolving into nothingness. Despite its psychic brilliance, the otherworldly beam cast no shadow in the real world, only gradients of brightness that pulsed in silent rhythm for the gifted to witness. Strangest of all was a perplexing sense of familiarity emanating from the beacon itself, filling me with a sense of unease and prompting me to cut off my powers. We eventually touched down in a designated open area where a mixed contingent of Mechonicus and sororitas were waiting for us. Canonis Diadina herself led the battle sisters. Accompanying her were Markila, Palatine Celisa and a small squad of Celestians. The group of Skitarii Rangers were led by Kira Hetrix, the Skitarii Alpha who I last saw on the deciding battlefield with the rebels. Upon seeing me stepping out from the gunship, the sisters formed the sign of the Aquila and bowed deeply. Kira and her rangers greeted us by forming the signs of the cogwheel. She looked different now, spotting a dull chrome human face plate under her hood in what must have been a Martian attempt to humanize the Scatorius. I recognized her by the distinct minor scratches on her battleplate. No sign of Cryptora himself though. I waved to the crowd. At ease, everyone. My lady, we have heard of your new deeds, Diadina said, beaming with her religious seal. I am sure Wellmanor will fill you in with the details. I nodded and turned to the Skitarii Alpha. It is good to see you again, Kira. Where is the Archdominus? Kira bowed and replied with her synthetic voice. My lady, Dominus Cycle awaits you at the vault entrance. He apologizes for not receiving you in person. Immediately some emotions of dissatisfaction could be sensed rising from the sisters around me. Did he encounter trouble? I asked but strangely did not receive an immediate response from Kira. Instead she looked at me blankly, her chrome mask silently reflecting our surroundings. I recalled how the Skitarii functioned in an old novel. It was said all their senses and bodily functions were at their master's mercy at all times, essentially making them literally tools. I would not be surprised if Cryptora was remotely viewing and controlling her at this moment. Switching tactics, I changed my question. Do you need me to reach the vault quickly? Kira nodded on that. It could have been a direct consent from Cryptora himself. Lead the way. Please follow me. Kira bowed before turning to walk, her squad marching behind their leader with inhumanly perfect synchronization. As we moved, I heard an exchange between Thabrus and Diadina. You brought enough? The Inquisitor asked. As you have requested. I briefly wondered what they were talking about but decided to leave it at that. As we stepped through the rocky mountain wall and into the outer perimeter of the Cradle Bastion, I started noticing a low and constant humming in the air. What is that? Wait, I know this feeling. I went psychically active, and as expected the dim light of many souls appeared up in my view. As we entered into a great space, my hunch was confirmed as a large group of battle sisters with Alisaya standing in the middle came into view. The combined numbers of active backpacks filled the air with the resonance of power armors at combat readiness. With just a glance my superhuman intellect counted multiple squads of standard battle sisters, the minions, and rebributors. There were even a few sister hospitallers present. Together with the Celestians accompanying Diadina, about a full company's worth of sororitas was here. All the squads present were maxed up on special and heavy weaponry, with various simulacrum imperialists standing tall throughout their ranks. A few censers were silently burning incense, filling the place with the scent of a monastery. While stunned, I immediately understood the situation. The sororitas had come in force as a deterrent against betrayal. Despite how the Imperium was usually presented as a unified front to the masses, more often than not the internal backstabbing between factions was a much bigger issue than most would dare to imagine. I recalled stories of how even Space Marines weren't spared from the infighting. There was that case of how the soul drinkers of old were betrayed by some tech priests over a relic. The soul drinkers with their Astartesian pride fought back in an escalating series of battles, eventually leading the whole chapter to be declared traitors. What would stop Cryptora from killing everyone else should he decide not to share? To think I somehow had never considered such a possibility made my blood run cold, but for Thabrus, such active precautions might as well be as mundane as Taco Tuesday. Alisaya walked up to me and bowed deeply with her squad. I recognized them to be the first group of sisters I met in this place. Now I even wore the same armor as them. We had come full circle. The journey continued as the whole group moved further into the bastion and eventually we reached the place where I first met Alisaya. It looked different now. A few huge pieces of machinery that reminded me of a Hades drill were at rest on the side. Groups of Scutari and a few Cataphren destroyers stood guard while a horde of servitors busied themselves moving earth and stones from the inside. From the condition on the ground it was apparent a lot of material had moved through the area, and due to the earthworks there were heavy dust particles in the air, forcing everyone to put on their rebreathers and helmets. I put on my helmet. The tactical system went live and a large number of virtual name tags appeared in my vision hovering over the battle sisters. It reminded me of an MMORPG event from a simpler time. We pushed further in, passing a giant blast door and into another area. Following a line of working servitors we eventually reached a spot where a huge tunnel was made into the side of a solid-looking rock face. A conveyor belt was delivering dugout materials from the tunnel. These were then picked up by the servitors waiting at the end point. Canonis Diadina split her forces here, putting half her battle sisters guarding the entrance of the tunnel under the command of Palatine Salisa. Kira led us into the tunnel that was wide enough for a truck. The place was lit by industrial-grade glow globes with super heavy-duty support pillars placed in intervals. Experiencing the place through my helmet, it was an eerie world that yawned ahead. A gleaming throat of rocks and earth with glow globes casting harsh halos. I was in the leading group with Diadina, Thabrus, their retinue and Margus Balpragus. Behind us marched half a company of sororitas, their boots struck the ground in a steady, unyielding rhythm. The sound of their marching merged into a relentless drumbeat that created layered echoes that seemed doubled, even tripled in the confined space, reverberating like a distant army moving alongside us. We progressed through breached rocks and sediments, then past a layer of black obsidian stones known for being totally inert to psychic powers. Eventually a group of figures appeared to greet us. One could easily tell they were the VIPs of Mechonicus by the small swarm of servo skulls hovering around their inhuman silhouettes and the presence of heavy battle servitors behind them. Cryptora's soaring stature stood out from the bunch. He was flanked by a few other individuals. Chief amongst them was his assistant Dataliad and another prominent-looking female tech priest who I did not recognize. Her duty done, Kira and her rangers joined the other side along with Balpraju's. Mentally I quickly assessed the balance of power between the forces and concluded we were about evenly matched. Faberus certainly had accurate intel on the place. Surrounded by his many servo skulls, Cryptora led the Mechonicus group forward with his omniscient axe held high. The deep resonant clicks produced with every step served as a stark reminder of the weight of his mechanical frame. The elite Celestian squad instinctively stepped forward, acting as the first line between both factions. The Arch-Dominus stopped right in front of us, his many glowing optics taking in everything. I tried to discern whether he was displeased by the throng of sororitas present, however both his post-human visage and mind betrayed nothing. For a brief moment the towering Dominus just stood still, and the air itself seemed to get tenser with every passing second until he finally spoke. Inquisitor, Canonus. Cryptora acknowledged both with a nod before turning to me. For the merest moment, I felt the impact of many sensor waves, an almost imperceptible sensation, like a faint tingling breeze stirring the surface of distant still water, washing over me. Just as I was surprised by my ability to feel the waves, Cryptora lowered his massive form and bowed. Lady SYRINE. Sensing no immediate threat, I walked past the line of Celestians and came face to face with him. Crypto. The tech priest rose and instantly dominated my view with his sheer size. I was reminded of the fact that despite sounding courteous when addressing me, he was by all definition a cybernetic monstrosity. My lady, it has been more than 600 hours since we last met. It is good to see you again. By the Omnissiah's blessings, we are but one step away from completing our quest. Your presence here will ensure it. So, complications? It is as you have foreseen. We encountered a formidable barrier. Well though, I'm quite sure he would have otherwise gone into the vault himself first. And how did that stop your drills and melter cutters? That alone wouldn't be an issue, but it threatened to detonate multiple devices that had become active. Devices? Affirmative, Cryptora continued with his synthetic flat tone, more specifically from our readings, Exterminatus-grade cyclonic torpedo warheads. By all that's holy,